Three, two, one, go. All right, mate. So, why this one?
Yeah, I quite like this film. Once again, I saw it as a kid and have seen it a lot of times. And just to kind of keep the action theme going, we've done a discussion for Schwarzenegger and one for Van Damme. We might give Seagal a turn tonight and see how we go. And this is probably his most well-known mainstream movie. This really punched him into the sort of mainstream, and it's probably his most successful movie. And right off the bat, I love this um, footage here of the battleship in the sea. Doesn't it just look spectacular?
I'm always a sucker for like submarine movies and things in the navy and that kind of stuff because it doesn't sound like I know tanks and fighter jets get all the action in big blockbusters, but I do like it when we change gears and focus on naval battles and things like that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic location. So I was reading the exterior shots were filmed of the USS Alabama, not the Missouri, and it was filmed in Mobile, Alabama. Although I was reading about the making of this film, the camera crew were allowed to film some footage of the real life USS Missouri as it was on a voyage to Hawaii, as we see Steven Segal make his appearance.
Oh, so they weren't miniatures or anything like that. It was the real deal.
I believe it was the real deal, yeah, from what I'm told. Now, this shot here, do you see the with the dolphins?
Yeah, I just saw the dolphin. Yeah.
That they're real dolphins in a magical stroke of luck. That was
Oh,
all real. And I'm told, I was reading in a book that Jim Cameron loved that footage so much he offered to buy it off them.
oh, well, there you go. I just want to say, just on the opening credits there, Damien Chapa, Ken Masters from the '94 Street Fighter movie, just had a credit there.
Yeah, and we just saw him. He was the one who had a quick chat to Ryback,
Yeah,
Damien Chapa. Yeah, he did go on to play Ken in Street Fighter. You're quite right.
I actually didn't mind him in the role.
Yeah, and he's kind of funny in this as well.
Well, I think action and comedy tend to go hand in hand, aren't they? Like even in the like mid to late '80s era, with things like Terminator and your Rambo's and all that kind of stuff, things that may not have been written to be funny in these blood-soaked, action-packed
Yeah,
macho man kind of things. Like they did have bits of comedy in them, like the old trope of killing the corpse, like the neck snaps and then the body blows up.
yeah,
Like,
and be on the lookout. That happens here as well.
yeah,
Later on in the
that's
film.
why I brought that up. Yeah. Mm.
Under Siege, and this is true in the sequel as well. It had fantastic villains. This is Gary Busey as Commander Krill, and we'll meet Stranix a bit later, and also Eric Bogosian's character in the sequel. They're so over the top, they're so ridiculous, they're so larger than life. They add a lot to um, this two film series. Another spectacular shot of this battleship.
Yeah,
Doesn't that look spectacular?
yeah, I know, like these anti-air cannons, and it's got like that kind of oil rig antenna dish look going on with it. Like I don't know one end of a ship from another, but I absolutely
Yeah.
love looking at them.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So this movie was originally titled Dreadnought. The screenwriter who just popped up, J.F. Lawson, he had another major hit a year or two before this with Pretty Woman. Although I'm told his original script was a lot darker in tone to what the finished product of Pretty Woman was. Once it got in the hands of Disney, they really Disneyfied it and gave it a much more happier, memorable ending. Seagal had some input on this script. He wasn't um, the leader of the terrorist Stranix had a female henchman, and Seagal's idea was to remove her and make her his sidekick, who we'll see a little bit later in the film. But J.F. Lawton, he went on to have a hand in a couple of films like Chain Reaction, the Keanu Reeves one from a few years later. But he's got some range, doesn't he? Because Pretty Woman, although I think his script had a different name as well in this film, very different subject matter and tone. And
Sometimes Disneyfying something, it's not sometimes I go into bat for that. Like, a lot of
Yeah,
people
well,
think,
they,
oh, it was toned down for the lowest common denominator, kiddie film, rom-com kind of territory. Sometimes that's not such a bad thing.
no, absolutely not. And they had the right idea because Pretty Woman is like this beloved movie of all time. And who can forget the ending with Richard Gere on the staircase with the flowers? I mean, I think the original ending, he just leaves her on the street where he found her. I mean, who's going to remember that?
Well, he
30 years
wasn't. He
later?
wasn't. Yeah, yeah. Like, that's what I mean. Like, he's not giving it to her, but he'll let her stay there.
Yeah, that's right.
I love dust shots. Like, I was looking
Yeah.
at some photos of Titanic earlier, and one thing that popped into my mind was that when Rose is recounting the being on the bow of the ship with Jack, she says that line, and it kind of just popped into my head earlier today, and it was the last time Titanic ever saw daylight, and you get the shot of the rear of the ship and the smokestacks and the sun's going down, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
ships make for such great good iconography in twilight zones like dawns and dusks. They just look so cool at those times of day.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some phenomenal exterior shots in this movie.
He's
And
reading a
Andrew
play,
Davis, the
dude.
director, he said when reflecting on the film, they were his favorite parts to film because apparently, although it's not a huge sort of secret, it's kind of well known, Seagal, as his career went on, became really difficult to work with on set and filming. And Andrew Davis said he was a real pain in the ass on this. They'd worked together in a film before this called Above the Law. And Seagal was a bit better behaved because he was still sort of trying to establish himself. But once he'd done those 3 or 4 really kick-ass kind of street-level action movies. By the time he got around to this film, he was quite difficult to work with on set.
I think that's a kind of a combination of things with actors that, like, when they're on the rise, like, you get them in different phases. Like, people say, oh, it's their ego getting out of control because they're well established and all of that. So it could just be as simple as they're fucking done doing this, like, they don't like being the same thing over and over again. This bloke here, he was reading the play, dude. I believe that's the same general from the Michael Bay Transformer movies.
Yeah, Glenn Morshower, you're quite right.
Yeah, he
He's,
gets around a bit, this bloke.
Yeah, and he played Aaron Pierce in the 24 television series. He had a somewhat recurring role in that. I really like him. He's a really good character actor. And yeah, he's in that initial scene with Michael Bay's film and with Blackout incoming.
Yeah, and he rocked up during the briefing in Revenge of the Fallen as well. Yeah, he's because I believe he's like the main point of contact with Nest for a lot of for the original first 3, I believe.
Glenn Morshower.
Yeah, he does get quite a fair bit. He brings the rain.
Yeah, I quite like him, and he's good in 24 as well, as he's given it to Ryback here.
I love the chef's hat. Just keep that on, because it's another one of those things, like Jean-Claude Van Damme in Sudden Death is a firefighter. He's not like, one of these kind of Terminator kind of guys, and this is what I really like about Steven Seagal in this movie. He's a chef.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting little wrinkle about it, isn't it? And it does and what I like about it, the film does explain it in a little while about what he's doing on there and why he's the cook.
Yeah, Damien Chapa making eyes as the back and forth goes on. Like he's like the scoreboard who's winning the dick swinging between these two.
Yeah. If I could have a Shanghai, Damien Chapa, believe it or not, went on to marry Natasha Henstridge. Incredibly, they're divorced. Like, Damien, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Seriously, who does that?
Well, I'm a little bit. I just channel a bit of Uncle Brian to Damien if I ever run into him. I'll be like, look, mate, look at that, and then look at you. I mean, you could live to be a billion. You'll never get a root better than that. Cash your chips, mate.
Yeah, I'm like, what am I reading here?
How the hell do you screw that up? Oh, far out. And that would have been like peak Natasha as well.
Yeah, they had a short-lived marriage. I think they were married for a year or so. Yeah, and Natasha Henstridge at a peak. Was a supermodel and then went on to do a fair few films that were kind of big at the time. But I was reading because I was trying to look back at anything else that Damien Chapa had been in that I would have heard of. and there wasn't much there to.
I thought he was more of a TV kind of guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, a lot of direct-to-video stuff. He does have a fair few projects in the pipeline because he's moved into sort of writing and directing and producing as well.
Oh,
But he seems
yeah.
to have gone down the conspiracy sort of rabbit hole. If you look him up on IMDb, some of his sort of upcoming and recent projects are leaning hard into that.
Oh, you're kidding me. Is that Aldis's dad there?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
I just love this guy and everything that he's in. Like, I mean, Con Air, fuck off, Larkin. This flight's booked, and he's got no idea. Like, he's really is the same guy in just about everything he's in. Like, he rocks up in the that HBO adaptation of Childhood's End, and he's the exact same guy in that as well.
Yeah, I really liked him as well. There's a kind of little known movie now called Intermission in 2003 with Colin Farrell. He's really good in that as well as this sort of reality TV cop, Cole Meany.
I don't think I could ever. I'm trying to avoid talking about Gary Busey because we fell into this trap with Point Break, and that is he is just such a joy to watch in everything that he's in.
Yeah, he's
Like-
handing it up here.
Yeah,
It's
but
so
we
great.
love watching him do it though, and he loves doing it.
Yeah, you hire Gary Busey, you get your money's worth.
I always thought it was the teeth, like the fact that he looks so much like a cartoon character.
Oh, it's so gross, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Like spitting is like one of the I can't even do it, man. Like at all. It's just one of those. It's as putrid as cigarettes to me. Yeah, just give him the old right hook. And I always love the sound effects back in these days. Like these days, you just hear like a little slap, but like back then, you hear the whole. Yeah, the old sound bite. Yeah, I love the fight in the kitchen. Oh god, he didn't miss.
Yeah, opened him
Yeah,
up.
yeah, the cheek cut. Yeah, the Russians cut. Yeah, another thing of the time, man. They don't hold back on the language in these movies.
Yeah.
But you've noticed that, like, slowly but surely, like the last couple of action movies we did, like the F-bomb started dropping, and I believe you told me once it was because of classifications to try and get ratings down and sell more tickets. They kind of had to stop dropping F-bombs every 20 seconds in action movies so kids could go and see it.
Yeah, apparently there's a now legendary sort of moment on the Ain't It Cool website. I think it's still going, but it's not defunct, but it's sort of when it was at its sort of peak, although kind of losing that. Bruce Willis himself like weighed in the talkbacks because when one of the later Die Hard movies was announced, it was getting a PG or an M, not an R, and fans were unhappy they thought that meant it was toning down the violence, and Bruce Willis himself weighed in and said, no, it doesn't mean an R rating, just means you can only say a certain amount of swear words so many times. And he posted a photo and it was verified that it was him and all this sort of stuff. It was pretty wild that actually happened. I think
out.
Stallone as well. Stallone once participated in the talkbacks or something back when, I mean, that's how much pull the site had back in the day. As Stranix and his team land on the deck. Tommy Lee Jones, yeah, I love him in this. And he had a lot of freedom, I was reading, to develop this character. The character in the original script was kind of bland and boring, and it was Tommy Lee Jones who rewrote a lot of the dialogue and came up with the leather jacket and the rock and roll kind of motif.
You just want him to say, hello, St. Louis, like as soon as he walks
terrific.
out.
I love that jacket, and yeah, he just brings so much to this film and elevates what could be a fairly pedestrian kind of action movie because it has such memorable villains, and that's why it stands out to me.
I love like the makeshift stitching on Busey's face now, like
Yeah,
which I believe he carries for the whole movie.
yeah.
Yeah, what you were just saying there, that Tommy Lee Jones had a bit of leeway to kind of help develop this character. See, that kind of stuff I don't mind, because there seems to be this thing going around, oh yeah, just let the actor throw in their own input. Sometimes you end up getting a lot of shit when that happens, when they start to develop the character the way they want to do their art house piece. But if they're developing
Yeah.
the character within conjunction to what the writers and directors want, and they add their own flair to that, that I think is totally cool. It's when they start to
Yeah.
Hudson Hawk it a little bit, does it give me the shits?
Yeah, I totally agree. If they can strike the right balance, which yeah, and the director Andrew Davis was really happy with with a lot of Tommy Lee Jones's suggestions because
He almost looks unrecognizable there, eh? Like,
yeah, and this was the first movie I was really exposed to him and his work. But yeah, he does the Roadrunner meep meep, and he's chugging like a train here. It shouldn't work on any level, but somehow Jones can pull it off.
and I think having him there like that when everyone else is wearing like these straight corporal uniforms and it's like this military by the book kind of operation. You just got this Fruit Loop running around looking like that.
Yeah.
It just totally throws like a wrench into everything you're absorbing visually.
Yeah, William Stranix, and I love the name as well. It's a name that
They almost sound like battleships themselves, don't they?
yeah,
The characters.
Stranix.
It almost sounds like a transformer.
Yeah, the female lead was Erica Eleniak. She plays Jordan. I'm not familiar with a whole bunch of her other work, although I do recall. I think she had a role in Baywatch during the '90s as well.
I tell you, Ryback spends quite a bit of time in the cold room, doesn't he? In this
Yeah.
movie, he's in there for like a good 20 or so minutes of the film.
Yeah, believe it or not, Tommy Lee Jones has more screen time than him. One
Yeah,
of the
I was just
producers said.
thinking that. Yeah, like because he's out of the loop for quite a fair bit of the film. Yeah,
Yeah, Segal was one of the producers, I think, said is only in the film for about 40 minutes. Tommy
yeah.
Lee Jones had more screen time, they were saying, so there you go. And so that's a good point you just made, yeah.
And I love how
He's-
the whole banquet's out there, but the head chef's not there.
Yeah, and no one. Actually, someone does pipe up about how weird that is in a minute.
Yeah, like like the old my compliments to the chef. Well, it'd be nice if someone could tell us where the hell he is. Yeah, I love that. I did like that quote just before there. Another cold day in hell.
Yeah, there are some good lines in this film.
Yeah, cold storage room, mate. That's how it goes. Oh,
Yeah,
I was always wondering this on like these, maybe not so much these military kind of naval fleets or anything like that, but I wonder what their stock is when they're like adrift for just days on end, surrounded by this blue noise. Like, I wonder what the food supply is like and
Yeah,
how they stock it and all that.
Yeah, I'd suggest they'd be heavily provisioned if they need to go on long-term missions, yeah. And they'd also, no doubt they'd probably make stops to replenish supplies. Yeah, I was interested in reading about the Pacific Fleet that patrols the Pacific Ocean. It's all really interesting. As Gary Busey, it's apparently, again, this was all Busey's idea. He was reading about the history of the USS Missouri, and legend has it, yeah, one of the commanders did dress up as a woman for some sort of celebration. So this is all Busey as well. He just went nuts with it.
Yeah. Well, why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
See, I get that, I get that, like, I get the sentiment when, oh yeah, we want to be a quote unquote serious actor, we gotta only play dead serious roles. I don't really agree with that. Well, like, I think if you can pull off the part you land and what's, and excel at it and bring it to life the way they want you to do it, and like, I think that's the way to go about it. It's not so much you got to play dead serious roles every single time. Like, everyone will tell you Gary Busey is a top, legendary actor. Look at him here. Like, he doesn't have dead serious roles all the time.
Yeah, I loved it. It was apparently Segal was not impressed. It made it into the final cut, and Busey was like, "I don't care."
I wonder why it upset him. Why? Because it wasn't a serious movie anymore. Because Gary Busey was cross-dressing.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, you got to turn the eggs over. What's that Owen Wilson quote in Cowboy Guy? Have the eggs hatched? Yes, a hatch yet? You just jobbed that bloke, man. Yeah, okay. So it's just crazy to me. You see all these different uniforms. I do like the two stiffs that just stand like statues during the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's almost like the Argonautica, like.
yeah. I didn't catch the name of the band in the background, the Fabulous Beetle Brothers, I think it said.
Something weird like that. I love it. You got to keep the stocking cap on for the wig. Like the wig's off, but leave the cap on. See, I love these kind of like the different interior shots of the different parts of the ship. Like I love
Yeah,
like the kind of captain cabins, admiral kind of look that Busey just walked into. Then you got like below the decks. Then you got the like the kitchenry area and like the helipad and all of that. Like I love the different parts of what goes into these ships and the
yeah,
different interior shots as well. It's really cool how that changes because that like captain room there like that looked like like a hotel suite and when you realize that it's a part of this ship it's just crazy how that works. I love it.
yeah, and yeah, above and below the decks and the different levels, it's pretty impressive how they put these massive battleships together. It's just so interesting.
Now we're off to the races.
Yeah, they're fast and efficiently taking over the ship.
Well, I suppose when everyone's pissed and smoking cigars and cross-dressing and waiting and all this kind of stuff, it's pretty easy to get caught off guard.
Yeah, and there was some blink and you miss it scenes where Krill teed all this up about pulling up off the roving patrols and the watches and all that. The captain specifically told him not to do that, but you see Krill at the start as the credits roll, and a little bit after, telling all the kind of sub commanders to take the night off to make this part of their job more easily dealt with.
Yeah, then Buster Rhymes turns up.
Yeah.
See, now I'm having a hard time remember if Tommy ever loses the shades or not.
Yeah, he does. He does take them off here and there.
Yeah. I love how, you put the private who doesn't ask questions in charge of this. You got shit
Yeah.
for brains. Yeah, a lot of these kind of phrases you don't hear much of anymore. Like the use of swearing and all of that in movies. I find it interesting that people like we're toning it down in action flicks, but if you look at like any comedy released in the last 10 or 15 years, all they ever do is just stock up on vulgarity. So I don't, and they clock in a bit like a nice sweet MA. Like it just, I don't understand why if it's an act, maybe because of the violence, like in conjunction with the violence, that's what knocks it up a bit more. But yeah, I just find it interesting the times when you can and can't do it. Well, like I
Yeah.
think if the character is just incredibly foul mouthed and that's just how they are, yeah, okay, that's cool, get away with it. But when every single character in the film is doing it, it blows my mind when that happens.
Yeah. It was kind of weird. So this sailor or soldier just getting killed here. Why did he try and rush the biggest guy in the squad? Like, wait till you walk past Stratix. He's a bit shorter. You might have better. He's a bit smaller. You might have better luck with him. Because that dude looked massive.
That is yours.
Believe it or not, at one stage they were considering Die Hard on a boat. It was a serious idea at one point for the actual Die Hard sequel, but when this came out,
Yeah.
it put an end to that idea.
Well, you've also got to remember that did happen with Speed 2.
Yeah, but like even before preceding both of these, they had cooked up an outline or a plan where John McClane is on vacation with his family on a cruise liner.
Well, I suppose the reason why they shied away from that is because being in a building where you literally just got to run out onto the street, like it's a bit more of that so near yet so far away. Whereas if you're on an ocean, like if you're in the middle of an ocean on a cruise liner, you're locked in regardless, mate. Where are you going to go? You're going to jump overboard? Like,
Yeah,
you know, like you're there to stay. I suppose being in a building and all that kind of jazz is a bit easier to lock people in on.
Yeah.
The three people in this room right now, and the costumes that they're wearing, like if you were to go into this with no context at all, what would be your thought?
I love this scene, isn't it funny?
Yeah, like I'm just like if I was just thinking to myself, if I turn the subtitles off this now, I would have no idea what's going on. If I was just channel surfing and I landed on this film in that scene, wow,
Yeah.
I would have to see it till the end now.
Well, I want to cosplay as Tommy Lee Jones when I go back to work next week.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So now we've all got our earpieces in. Yeah, I was going to say, so we've only seen the bridge about 2 or 3 times so far, I think.
Yeah, there were some establishing shots at the start of the film, yeah.
Yeah, they've been steering clear of it, yeah. Yeah, I love seeing all of the, I believe they're called instruments.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be pretty easy, like if you're... I mean, these guys clearly know what they're doing when they're mapping out trajectories and oceans and currents and all that kind of stuff. But if you know nothing about like seamanship, good God, you could get yourself into some trouble very quickly.
Yeah, maritime navigation. Yeah, it's just so interesting to read about and watch in action how radar works and how mapping and navigation and all that kind of work. I follow a few maritime YouTube channels and I check in with them occasionally, and I was really stoked to there's this one channel making fun of flat earthers, and there was some comments in the comment section about you're upsetting the feelings of flat earthers, and he goes, good, anyone who's spent any sort of serious time on a ship knows that our entire maritime naval navigation is based on the fact we're on a globe, so I'm glad I'm pissing people off. And I'm thinking, how good is that? Like, you know, we need more of it. Stand up for yourself and stand up for what you believe in and start calling some of this nonsense out, and don't be afraid of hurting feelings.
I remember a good comment I heard: how can you tell good advice from shit advice? Because good advice is hard to listen to.
Yeah.
Good advice tells you some hard truths that you need to hear and you don't like hearing them. That's how you know it's good advice. Shit advice is stuff you agree with when they confirm what you're thinking. Like that's shit advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes place on a globe. Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, I even had stuff like water temperature as well can like interfere with like radar and stuff like that. Like submarinal kind of navigation, like cold water and sonar. Like it does something. I don't know what it's like now, but I did hear like that. It's like they're almost like black zones, like phone receptions in ways.
Yeah. Okay. And it's funny because you mentioned earlier
the raw meat.
Segal in the meat locker. I think that's probably his hardest obstacle to overcome in the entire film, right?
Getting out of it. Yeah, because that's what I mean. Like, where are we? We're almost half an hour into the film. He's been in there for about 90% of his screen time. Yeah. He's been in the kitchen twice, and he's been in the meat locker ever since.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, well, I guess the unsung hero is this rookie.
Yeah.
I'm utterly blown away. Why didn't Busey just shoot him in the head? Like, I mean, if Ryback's going to be such a problem, he already knows you're at foul play. Why didn't he just kill him?
Well, yeah, the fatal blunder was locking him in there, because if he'd put him in the bridge, he would have been captured with the rest of them.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that he separated him like that. Why? Oh, well, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, and he knows that Ryback's good friends with the captain. So if someone's in the bridge, it probably needs to get reported, and the captain wants to know why. So maybe he thought he'd just sideline him and try and keep it covert.
Krill. As in, like, the krill that whales eat?
I'm guessing so,
yeah.
This is a good line coming up. They can handle 20 Marines and 100 cooks.
I'm just eating the raw meat. It reminds me of the... yeah, the supermarket scene in Universal Soldier where that one guy before Dolph comes out just grabs that raw steak and just starts
Oh yeah.
tearing into it. Yeah. He's just been bagging the shit out of this private for like the whole movie. Yeah, the fire blanket. See, I wonder if that was part of Seagal's frustrations as well, that they kind of just duck shoved him for most of this
Well,
flick.
he's so hard to predict. I mean, the stories about him just pile up. The um, just what a weird, interesting kind of dude, and yeah, just a bit of a prick. He was to work with. I mean, the stories about him and his ego. I mean, they're just become legendary by this point. But yeah, they found it really hard to corral him into doing what they wanted for this film.
Well,
And
I
the fact that
suppose.
it was a
Yeah.
massive hit, I think it was shot for about 30 to 35 million. It went on to gross over 150 million.
I,
So it's
yeah.
hard to believe just how astonishingly and staggeringly successful this film was.
I really do miss like a kind of modest budget. Well, back then it probably wasn't. Um, a modest budget for something where you can see where the money was spent.
Yeah,
It really bugs the shit out of me when I see something get 250 million. And as you're watching it on screen, like they're massive CGI spectacles and there's practical, effects going off and all that, but you can't really tell where the money was spent because you're so numb to seeing that. Like,
yeah,
it's like,
I
yeah,
like. I think it's a good point. I like seeing, like, you can tell that money was well spent on this, but yeah, with a lot of these bloated movies and their budgets, it's hard to see. Um, yeah, really tense seeing this one.
and just my little point on about sudden death, like the one color highlit rooms, like
Yeah,
I love the orange, just a light filtering through everything, and then like the blue filtering through everything, and it's something that you really don't see anymore.
yeah, it's such a cool scene visually. The hunter becomes the hunted. And gee, what a look at this shot here. He just drills this guy with the knife. Wow.
Oh, that's that guy.
Yeah. Gee
I was
whiz.
just gonna make a comment. I love how as soon as the chef jacket comes off, he's like in military gear. He's got the kayaki green going on and all this stuff. Like as soon as the jacket came off, he had that underneath.
Yeah, as a kid watching it, because I was a big fan of Street Fighter, he's kind of wearing Guile's suit, isn't he? With the army pants and the green singlet.
Yeah, the dog tags. Well, actually, in the night, now that you brought that up, that's a good point because in the '90s with these action guys, how common was that? Like you had that Michael Bean shot that was probably more late '80s where it looked just like Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. Then you had Sylvester Stallone in Daylight, and he looks just like Chris Redfield.
Yeah.
You've got Bruce Willis in The Fifth Element. He looks just like Duke Nukem. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy how weird that was in the 90s. Like, I don't know if someone was doing that deliberately or what, but
Yeah, it's hard to
a
tell,
lot of
isn't it?
action stars all of a sudden started rocking video game inspired outfits that had nothing to do with the movies that they were in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a weird coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah. Here we go. What's going on? The fuck you want, man? We're closed. Wrong. You're open. Thanks, asshole. I love that formula of you got a group of baddies who you all can't wait to see get whacked. You see, and like the internal cockpit shot, like you don't need to show a jet doing Top Gun Maverick shit to get your money's worth out of a jet.
Yeah, it's really cool seeing all this hardware and vehicles.
See, now I think this Yeah, I like. See, I actually on this real quick, I've never been able to figure this out because I'm pretty ignorant to this. Like the lapel badges and blazer colors and all that kind of stuff. Like, what actually? Like, I know they're accolades and decorates and all that kind of stuff, but what actually are they? Are they badges or plaques or?
I think
Um,
they're bars that can join together, can't they?
yeah, I've never been so sure about that.
Because our
Yeah.
military personnel, in sort of other films, they mention bars or tags that they can. I'm assuming that's what they are, some sort of badge or a bar.
Yeah, I really should be able to answer that question by now, but yeah,
Yeah, wearing
that's
their medals proudly.
yeah, got to be someone needs some killing.
Major pain.
Yeah, I love the just flip it off right there.
Yeah, and it's a kind of important scene in the setup of the film because they can't blow the ship up, as in like a direct strike. They know the ship is armed, and it's later on it's established they've got nuclear missiles as well. I meant to look up the name of this song that plays because I quite like it.
I
It
love the
really sets,
champagne.
yeah, it really sets the tone of the film going forward.
I just point out, you notice with the three glasses chinking there, Gary Busey just downs the champagne in one shot, like the whole
Yep.
glass, and the rest of them just slow roll it.
Yep, another epic shot of the battleship. And the music just really cements it too. What a cool moment.
I'll chop down the edge with my hand. So, how long have they had the boat in real time under control? It's been what,
Oh, probably
almost
an hour or
24
two.
hours? Like,
Probably not that, because he's escaped from the meat locker. But yeah, probably a couple of hours.
yeah, I just think that because you keep getting like these external like dawn shots of the ship and all of that, and usually when you do that, like it's kind of like Jaws when you get like the shot of the outside and then it's like it's gone dusk and all of that. I usually count that as one day and all of that, but this probably takes place all over the one night.
Yeah, quite right as well. Yeah, because yeah, there was some faint daylight on that shot just before. Now it introduces the sort of the government Pentagon subplot.
And there's a couple of familiar faces on the board, isn't there?
Yeah, that's Admiral Bates and Tom Breaker. He returns for the sequel as well in a small role.
See, this is almost like there's a lot of similarities to this in Con Air in a way, isn't it? Like you get a bunch of defectors and psychos and all of that together taking over a boat. I do like the kind of ripples that it had on films later in the decade.
Yeah, it's a great scene, this one. Yeah, once again, as we discussed earlier, Tommy Lee Jones did all of this. He rewrote his own and ad-libbed his own speech here. And I love the reactions from the two offsiders as well. Like Dolma, he's trying hard not to piss himself laughing, and Busey has to sort of step aside because he
Walk
can't.
away from the mic before they catch him snickering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. I miss that. Like that. Like that's what I mean. Like you gotta have little beats like that. I think in movies with characters, and I'm just speaking at the mic, like straight into it. So
Yeah.
there's no obscurity. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's the 60s.
Yeah, of the global gene pool. Jesus
He's like,
Christ.
he's an absolute dribbler.
Well, he has had a couple of glasses of champagne tonight, so
Yeah.
I mean, well, you got to have this kind of back and forth, don't you? Like Hans had it in Die Hard, you know. Cyrus has it in Con Air. You got to have the main antagonist speak to the group of officials in such a manner. It's just something that you did in these kind of movies.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird, odd theme that pops up in some of Seagal's movies as well, like the idea of corrupt sections of intelligence agencies. He seems to sort of gravitate towards it in some of his other films as well, about these sort of off the books wet works, black ops missions, and failing missions and coming back to bite you. It's kind of interesting, dark, twisted kind of stuff. There's some, as Breaker discusses Stranix, there are some. Also, I recognize some echoes as well with the Bourne Identity, with that sort of scene at the start of that film where the government has an assassin that tried to take out a target and failed. And Brian Cox's character in that film's going, someone tried to take him out and failed. This was 2 weeks ago. And Chris Cooper says, you never wanted to know before, but you'd never made a mistake before. And so when we cut back to the Pentagon, they're grilling Breaker about Stranix. I always thought that was, an interesting scene about these highly trained, totally top secret wet works guys that do these missions. And yeah, what if one of them ever goes rogue? That's scary to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, case in point, like the last movie we did, like that's exactly what Joshua Foss was.
Yeah.
Like, right, how long have you been with the service? I still am.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And they're grilling Breaker like, you've been financing and training this maniac, and it never occurred to you we might be a problem.
Yeah, it's that real come to terms moment with like the wolf in the hen house, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, Jesus. Yeah, and you got to love the red phone in like these kind of Pentagon kind of scenes.
Yeah, and they're a dime a dozen in action movies, aren't they? These guys in suits just sitting around looking concerned.
Yeah, I refuse to believe though. See, this is like I get what they're doing in movie terms when they do that. I understand what they're doing, but I refuse to believe that everyone in the room is that inept. Yeah. Like, I mean, okay, so what's your contingency plan? I'm like Bruce Willis in Armageddon. I mean, you're the ones who think this shit up. Like, what's the backup plan?
Yeah, and it's complete sort of movie logic. They have to be inept, otherwise there's no movie.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I'm just saying, I refuse to believe that everyone in head office is a total numpty. Like, maybe call it 75-80.
Yeah.
80% probably are, but I don't believe everyone is.
Yeah. And that little moment from Tom Breaker, I love that little cough. Look, I know things are a little chaotic right now.
Yeah, he won't be joining us due to a sudden case of death. Yeah, the wooden deck. It's starting to give me flashbacks to Rusty Bucket Bay. So, absolutely none of them are aware of the fact that Ryback's out of the cool room now.
No, that's right. They start to become aware when the two who were sent to kill him haven't checked in. So that's coming up shortly as he...
Well, they're too busy getting pissed and cracking jokes over the two-way to realise that
they
one
haven't
thing that can derail them, they haven't had an update yet.
Yeah. As we get this cringe scene out of the way. I really didn't. This scene has not aged well at all. I know it's very popular.
There's someone in it, yeah.
Yeah, for obvious reasons. But it's so cringe. Looking back.
Yeah, like
Eric Melaniak did really, like when reflecting on the film, she really didn't want to do this scene. It's not in the script. It's an idea. This is pure 100% Segal. And it gets even sleazier. I was reading. Apparently, he wanted to push to have a love scene in the film, but
why?
Yeah, exactly. It's so sleazy and cringe, and it's so out of place. It took Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey to speak up to try and put the kibosh on it. Because like you just said, and I think Busey pointed it out when they were making it, like, this guy's being hunted all over the ship. When does he find time to get his kid off, It's so...
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And he knows that his Captain Friend's dead. Like,
yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a dire situation. Like, two guys trying to... I don't know about you, man, but my Woody Woodpecker ain't coming out on time, mate. You know.
Uh,
But
yeah,
why?
very,
Why would
very
that
cringe.
be the moment? Good God! I'm glad that guys like Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey were there. Going, okay, it's called Under Siege.
Yeah, and she did reflect. Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones was really supportive. Yeah, she didn't really want to do it, but yeah, but Tommy Lee Jones was a real support for her. She said, but because there have been stories about Seagal and how he treats some of his female colleagues. Although interestingly enough, Erica Eleniak defends him. So who knows what the truth is? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle because he has. There have been complaints about him on other films.
Ugh, far out. I remember when I did a Highlander rewatch when Connor decides to bonk the reporter chick. Um, I couldn't help but think, wait a minute, aren't you about to fight to death with the Kurgan? Why are you doing this now? Um,
Yeah,
like that's a love scene that sticks out to me, and it just why is this the moment? Like you just found out that Heather was raped a couple of centuries
yeah.
ago, and what that gets you in the mood to go after the journalist chick. Connor, what's going on, mate? Like,
Yeah, it's been out of place in pretty much every one of these films. The only one that actually makes any sort of sense is the one from the Terminator. Like it
yeah,
actually
it does.
works
Yeah, that's
thematically.
literally the only time
Yeah,
it has been done and it works. And like the whole film, like it's almost like kind of the linchpin of the whole film, isn't it?
yeah.
In a
Other
way.
than that, yeah, pretty much every love scene in every action movie has been forced and out of place, except for that one.
Yeah. And 40 years on, we still can't do it right. Well, there you go then. So at least one did it.
Yeah. Just yeah, these scenes really are a good circuit breaker for all the action on the ship. Particularly, they also serve another function of driving the plot forward. Breaker is absolutely sure that Strannik sunk this sub,
Yeah,
but
Roadrunner to Tweety Bird.
yeah,
I
never been
love these
caught.
names. Yeah. Wile E. Coyote. Yeah, well, hey, this is a Warner Brothers production, so you can't fault them on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, Tweety Bird. Oh, here we go. I was gonna say that was a good shot of it underwater there. I did like
yeah,
that. Like it was almost like kind of like a mirror, like because I was trying to figure out if it was actually sinking or if we were getting an underwater view looking up at it and it was still floating. It looked really cool.
yeah. It was a really good shot.
Yeah, and lock her in the gun cupboard because why not? Why did he do that?
Well, he wants to leave her behind because she's going to give away their position and probably just slow him down.
Okay, this is something like I know. I said Steven Seagal was a bit before my time, and when these films were coming out, there were kind of bigger and better productions to check out of other stars that were kind of branching off and doing their own thing, like JC Vd and and Arnold was becoming more of a protagonist instead of a villain in the films that he was in at that point in time. Um, like I find it when I go back and look at Steven's catalog, I find it very hard to get on board with his protagonist in any of the films because
Yeah,
he's an
he's
unlikable douche nozzle in not the actor but the characters that he plays are very hard to get.
yeah,
But like, what drives Rybeck? He's just a guy in a shit situation at the moment. That's about it. I don't know, and like, why is he fighting to live another day? I don't know what's going on with him.
yeah. I He's definitely an acquired taste. I'd be really keen to sort of talk to fans who it was a case of love at first sight with him. He's definitely an acquired taste for me. I can't, yeah, I can't stomach him long term. Like, I don't think I can ever see myself doing a Steven Seagal marathon. I do own quite a few of his movies, um, but yeah, his characters are just yeah. I can't really explain it better than you just did. They're definitely
No, like
not the
that's like
norm.
yeah, like all of his like
Movie.
it's not him as an actor. It's just all of his characters. Like Darren McCord, I can get on board with. You know, John Kimball, I can get on board with. Gabe Walker, I can get on board with. Like I know what those guys are about. I know what makes them tick. But in every Seagal movie, like don't get me wrong, the action's great, the settings are good, the villains are good, and all that kind of jazz. But when it comes to his particular character, like he's not really playing a character; he's playing himself, kind of
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah,
And
there's a story about him, apocryphal, but perhaps true. I find it hard to believe a stipulation like this would be in a contract, but apparently in one of his films it stipulated no one was allowed to hit him. He goes through the whole movie without copying no damage whatsoever.
so, in other words, there's no stakes.
Yeah, he's this ultimate sort of Superman who can't be hit, who can't be cut, who can't be touched. I find it hard to believe something silly like that would be actually put in writing.
But then
he's
when
a
you
weird
hear,
dude, so you can't rule it out.
then when you hear stories like Stallone, you're not allowed to be on set if you're taller than him.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you know, but that one I don't find as bad. Like I just think that's kind of a, you know, like yeah, you're the leading guy. The movie's named after you. It's like the third sequel. Okay, I get it. You want to be the big dog on campus. You've probably earned the right to do that by now. Okay, whatever. I really can't rule it out with Steven. Like he hasn't even, you know, he hasn't shed a single drop of blood yet, and it's about an hour in,
yeah,
and he's killed like 9 people.
yeah, yeah. And this movie just sent his clout soaring. So his next movie after this is absolute him at the peak of his pull in the industry. He did a movie called On Deadly Ground, and he got to direct it as well. And the project came about. So it's like an environmental sort of thriller. And so for some reason, Seagal wanted it, but he was only interested in it after he'd heard that, because another actor contracted to Warner Brothers was Clint Eastwood, and his Appaloosa production company, I think I got that name right, he was interested in doing this environmental thriller. And Seagal only took it just to fuck him over. I'm like, why do that to Clint? He seems like a nice guy. But it was just pure, just because he could. And he goes, no, I want that one. And because audiences were so high on him at the time, and Under Siege was such a big hit, they took it off Clint Eastwood and gave it to him.
You know,
And
just yeah.
On Deadly Ground is notorious because it went on to be just such a massive flop, and it derailed him pretty
Yeah,
much.
so
at its
basically
apex.
all of the goodwill that he did have built up was completely squandered because he decided to
Yeah.
be a dick.
Yeah, obliterated it, like rewrote the script. It's, insisted it on doing everything his own way, and yeah, it was a huge flop.
See, this is something else as well. Like, you know, we talked about this a bit earlier with Tommy Lee Jones. Like, because this is another one of those things. Like when an actor's been doing the same role for quite a while, same genre and all of that. Yeah, give them a bit of creative input. There's 2 instances of this I can think of where it's totally blown up in the face of the actor, and I'm not a big believer in it at all. The first one is Christopher Reeve with Superman. A lot of the quest for peace stuff with the nuclear weapons and all all that shit was his art house project that he wanted to do, and I get what he's going for, you know. But is a Superman movie really the time and place to be doing it?
Yeah, it's a good point.
And the other one was Sigourney Weaver with some of the weird ideas for aliens she kept pitching to. It might have even been Jim Cameron at the time, and he kept shooting them down. Lo and behold, I know Sigourney got a producer credit on the later Alien movies, and the things that she wanted to do slowly but surely crept in, and they're all the things that everyone hated.
Yeah, Cameron kind of recanted that. Yeah, she had 3 or 4 things she wanted it to happen, and he said no to all of them. And yeah, he did reflect on the later films. One by one, they all sort of crept in as she got sort of more clout and more control over that series.
I'm not a big believer in it, you know, like actors having, like, you know, oh yeah, well it's their series. Well, it's kind of not, you know, like they're there to play a character. They're not there to steward the, you know, to right the ship and all that. Like they're not there to do that. So and a lot of them don't have a writing background, or, you know, can really really get a good grip on what makes, like, because a lot of them that, like, they know the movies that they're in are loved, but they got clearly no idea why that they're loved.
Yeah, some actors can be, yeah, really oblivious to what made their signature memorable role so popular. It's quite interesting when you sort of hear them reflect on it. Like, it must be just this sort of unique alchemy, whether it's their performance and the right director and composer and cinematographer. When all the elements come together, you do get something really memorable. And also, people like some people in the industry handle it better than others. Like some people are realists, like they know, like it's what keeps a lot of these production companies and studios going are the commercial ones. So, like some actors, okay, they do one for the studio and they stay on good terms. Like then they get to make their little weird art house one, and then they do another big one to keep the studios going, which is what they want. Then they get to go make their little artsy fartsy art house one again. So, like a guy like that is probably Sam Raimi. Like he'd do the big studio one, and then he'd go make something a bit smaller scale, like a Simple Plan. Then he'd go and do this big epic studio one again. So like he understands how the industry works, and he knows like without those big epic studio ones that do well, because they probably prop up the 20 flops.
I was thinking a good story I remember hearing about actors and creative input and ego and all this kind of jazz. A good story I remember is Kevin Smith talking about Ben Affleck on the set of Chasing Amy, and Ben Affleck when he was on the swing with Amy in that scene, and he kept ad-libbing and just adding stuff in that wasn't in the script, and Kevin Smith kept pulling him to the side and giving him a smack over the ear. Dickhead, say it as the way I've written it. And then Ben Affleck would be like, leave it in there for my peeps. And Kevin Smith said, this is 1996 Ben Affleck. He didn't have peeps back then.
Oh, that's gold.
Yeah, I love it when and I understand, like they're in some massive film that just totally explodes at the box office. It gets stark raving reviews and all of that. That little sliver of success just totally goes to their head. And the next thing that they're in is just flop after flop after flop after flop. Because they think that their name is all it takes to sell it. That does wear off eventually.
Yeah, it's a good insight into how people handle success, because some of them can be quite humble and down to earth, but some of them just turn into these raging lunatics with even just like a tiny amount of success. They're just completely over the top. This is another good line here. You're not a cook. Yeah, well, I also cook.
I like this because finally now, like, the main players of the story have all converged at some point. Like, the villains know that he's on the loose.
Yes.
Back on the mainland, they know he's there and he's their way in now, and so now we're really picking up steam now. Moving into our tail end of the film.
Yeah, and in every one of these action movies, they've got a list like all the accomplishments of the protagonist.
God would have mercy. He won't.
Yeah, expert in knives and guns, and special forces trained, and all this sort of stuff.
Like, you just got to stroke their own egos. Captain Sawada. Yeah, the misery. Yeah, it's like they've always got to kind of rattle that off. Actually, my favorite spin on that, when they all talk about like all of the background information that you get on the main macho hero, my favorite spin on that ever goes to Escape from LA with Stacey Keach. He plays like sort of a villain to Snake Plissken, but he's the one villain on the team that doesn't underestimate him, that knows what he's about, and the way that he plays the kind of background, while everyone else is kind of just treating him, he's a lost cause, we don't need to take him seriously. I really like that spin on it. It's like Troutman, but not as cartoonish and outlandish. I think Stacey Keach did a very good job of it.
Yeah, that's another memorable example. I found it interesting. I'm not exactly sure of the logic here. Why does he want to blow up this? I think it's a Seahawk chopper, because it's quite conceivable what Jordan just said to him. Can we fly that out of here? And he goes, no. Is it?
Why?
Yeah, that's cool because he blows it up with this.
Oh, please tell me he doesn't open the jerry can. He just jams a knife in it.
Yeah. We mentioned this. I can't remember what film it was.
I think it might have been Point Break. I think, but yeah, no time for lids, mate. Just stab a knife into it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he punctures it with the knife.
Yeah, Javier Bardem does a similar thing in No Country for Old Men. Yeah, knives, using lids are for pussies, mate. Just, here we go. Paint. Yeah, just stab it, mate. Because stabbing it saves so much more time than just unscrewing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, alright, so maybe it's a damn good point that you bring up. Why blow it up? I don't know, maybe because he's not a pilot?
Yeah, it's all just trapping them there so they can't get away with it. I was kind of spitballing ideas why this happens. But yeah, it's a pretty cool scene as well as they.
Well, I suppose we do have to blow something up in an action movie. So if it's not this thing, then what?
Yeah, direct confrontation. Kind of aping the John McClane jumping off the skyscraper. He jumps off the deck of the boat.
That's right. I keep forgetting that this is post Die Hard.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, not by much though. Only like a year or two.
Yeah, by 15 months or so. I wonder what the procedure would be if someone fell overboard of this. Do you just ignore them, and or how do you go about getting someone back on board?
Oh, you'd hope not. But I was reading a story just the other day about a passenger who fell over on a cruise liner. And there have been the odd story here and there that I'm not sure what nationality they were, but the wife or the girlfriend fell over first, and the boyfriend jumped in after them, and they were both lost at sea. I guess stay on the boat, because I would like to go on a cruise liner eventually, but it must be terrifying to go overboard.
Oh yeah, it's an absolute nightmare. Not that I ever have. I'll never forget. I had a few friends saying once that they should do the whole cruise thing and that I should go with them and all of that. And I said, oh, well, tropical kind of environments, I do like them, but I don't really play nice with them. It throws my sinuses out and all that kind of stuff. I'm not really good with sea air. But apparently if you live around it long enough, it's pretty easy to do, but it does knock me around for a little bit. And I was like, one of them was dead set against it because cruises are dangerous, and when I asked them why, they said, haven't you ever heard of the Titanic? I'm like, well, wait a minute, mate. They don't have icebergs in the tropics. You flog.
Yeah, and the chances of these modern liners.
We got satellites and radars and all sorts of stuff now.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, the chances of that happening again is zero. Your friend, I think, is overreacting a little bit.
Well, that's what and people wonder why I drink, mate. It's because of things like that. If you believe that's going to happen to you, then you believe in the tooth fairy. All right, so the hole's been punctured because of that.
No, Krill's came up with the idea to draw Ryback out. He's going to flood the area where the crew are being held prisoner. He's activated the sprinkler alarms.
Oh, yeah. And because of the rooms are all watertight.
Yeah, he's going to try and lure Ryback out.
So it was Steve Seagal's idea to have her as a sort of female companion.
Yeah, so in the original script, there was, I think her name was Bambi, and she was a female henchman in Stranix's group. May have even been Stranix's girlfriend. But yeah, that was the idea. Occasionally he has some good input into the scripts, Segal does. And I think the film is much stronger for it, but he came up with the idea to have the female henchman become his sidekick.
But I love how, in his mind, what that translates to is keep telling her every time she opens her mouth, she has a shit idea.
Yeah.
Just constantly berating her all the time or showing her up. All right.
Yeah, no one steals Seagal's thunder. in his mind.
I'll never forget. Kev Smith told a story about Bruce Willis in that Die Hard 4.0. Kev Smith's cameo, his character was meant to call him Cue Ball.
Yeah,
But then they stomped it out of the script. No, you don't understand, Kev. Bruce Willis can make fun of you, but you cannot make fun of Bruce Willis.
yeah, that's right. That's how the world works.
I love guys who can dish it out but can't take it. It's so funny.
Yeah.
See, I had a very vague memory of this film. Like, I always thought Damien Chapa was the kind of low-level henchman, villain, hasta luego, fellas, Sully kind of guy. But I clean forgot that he was actually one of the protagonists of the film.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's got that. Think he's. I think he does the laundry.
I love it
Although
how
I think
it's all like the homekeeping, homemaker guys who are fighting these rogues.
Although I think I read somewhere they rotate duties like that, the cleaning and the maintenance and that. But I think it's because there was a huge kerfuffle from The Force Awakens about
Oh, that
when
janitor line that Finn had,
and
yeah.
so a Star Wars fan posted on the forums who was actually in the armed services said what they do is they cycle jobs like that where it's like a rotational basis. I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, they would do something similar in the Navy, but I can't say it for sure because it caused sort of quite a kerfuffle. That I remember that whole brouhaha.
Well, just on that real quick, like that. See, that's something that I find interesting about Michael Bay as a director because he has a good relationship with the U.S. military. So
Yeah.
showcasing tanks and Raptors and all that kind of stuff. He has quite an ease of access to that kind of stuff. So it's interesting how he tries to get that pretty much down to the wire when he displays military force.
Yeah, he was lucky enough to. I think he was allowed to use a real F-22 in one of the Transformers films. I think Marvel, the Iron Man movie. I think they were CG when Iron Man flies alongside the two fighter jets, but I think in a later movie they were allowed to use a real one as well. So, because the F-22 in particular always attracts a lot of attention because it's so top secret and classified. We don't really know how it's made. We don't really know how it can make itself invisible, and all that information will be classified for decades to come. It's so interesting, but we know so little about it. Occasionally they show it off at an air show. I'd like to attend an air show because like seeing a squad of F-22 Raptors is a thing of beauty. That's how it was described. They
I remember that comment going like, "What the US built like 22 of them, and then that's 21 more than what you need to win a war."
yeah, it's quite having superior air power. Yeah, is a massive advantage in a military conflict, and because it's stealth, like it's so hard to. I mean, how do you hit something you can't see or can't locate or can't identify? I mean, stealth is the main power, but even though it's armed to the teeth, like it's totally unnecessary. It's all just lip service. Like it's so like stealth is its main capability to fly in and out of enemy areas and not be detected.
Just yeah, with
Because all of its weapon systems are held internally, which is how it helps to stay hidden. Like every other jet has like missiles and that along its wings, but you'll notice there's no missiles or anything visible on a Raptor. It's all held internally.
I was just going to make a quick thing about Tommy Lee Jones there. I know he's no stranger to playing villains. I'm not too sure what the ratio is between his, hero roles and his villain roles. Like, I know there's, Two-Face and that kind of stuff. But in the 90s, he was a bit of a villain in, The Fugitive and all that kind of stuff to Richard Kimball and
Yeah.
that was it just kind of a phase he was going through in the 90s to play villains?
Well, yeah, he had a stellar decade, didn't he? In the 1990s, he was in this. He went on to do Batman Forever, which was another big hit. And Andrew Davis, who directed this, also directed The Fugitive. He really enjoyed working with Jones, and they reunited the year after for The Fugitive. In fact, Andrew Davis recounts Harrison Ford was so high on this movie, he offered him the job. Harrison Ford saw this movie. He saw Under Siege when it came out, and he, contacted Andrew Davis and said, "I want you for The Fugitive." Andrew Davis jokingly says it was because of the cake jumping scene, wasn't it?
Oh my god.
So yeah, but then Tommy Lee Jones also did, and he's so crucial. I know Will Smith gets a lot of accolades. He was so crucial to Men in Black. Tommy Lee Jones is amazing in the Men in Black films, particularly that first one. He is such a linchpin and nexus point of its success. He's a wonderful actor. And he went on to do No Country for Old Men. He was in the first Captain America film. But he's what an amazing career.
God, he'd be a fair age now, wouldn't he? He'd be well into his 80s by now, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, I think he was around 40-ish when this was made. So yeah, late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, and he's still keeping on. He was in a relatively recent movie. I can't remember its name though. I've been meaning to get around to it. But yeah, he's a great actor.
I love these quips in these 80s and 90s action movies where you got the protagonist sneaking around, gun in hand, and they're taking their angles and all of that. Then some random henchman will just run out with no cover at all, just and then just get mowed down. Because I remember hearing a good comment. A lot of people, like as a rule of thumb, they judge action movies pre and post The Matrix. Because like The Matrix in '99 was when you had those kind of long choreographed fights, that long sweeping one takes, and all of that really became a thing with The Matrix in 1999. But a lot of films before that were just guys running around, and it was like a run and gun kind of thing for a lot of action movies. And I thought that's an interesting way of looking at it on the timeline.
Yeah, it was so groundbreaking, that first Matrix film, wasn't it? And it just launched 1,000 copycats going forward.
Yeah, Segal loves these knives, doesn't he?
Yeah,
These films.
I was going to talk about it in the final knife fight, but it's a good point you make there. It's a Gerber Mark II knife. I hope I've pronounced it correctly for your listeners. It's Gerber, Gerber, or Gerber. It's an American-made knife. It's actually been in a couple of high-profile films. It was the same knife the Winter Soldier used in his street fight with Captain America in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, where Bucky, he does that cool. He flips the knife mid-fight and starts going on the offensive again. It's a wonderful-looking knife. It's double-edged. I think it was designed back in the 70s.
I've got a buck 120 hunting knife from the Scream movies. I've got like a real one. I use it to unbox my toys. But I wanted to collect. Also, people, don't go running around with that with your Ghostface cosplay. That will get you arrested.
It's I'm sort of beginning. It's baby steps, amateurish at the moment, but I am interested in collecting some knives. I'd like to. The Gerber Mark II knife it's rare and it's expensive, but I would like to get a Gerber knife that's a bit more recent. I would actually like to get Heath Ledger's knife when he kills Gumbo in The Dark Knight, but again, that's very popular and very expensive. It'd be a nice hobby to get into.
Well, I would love,
like you mentioned, is really popular.
I would love to get into collecting some other knives, but I know what I'm like when I have a couple of beers one night and I start gushing about my toys. I'll end up poking my own eye out one night.
That's
playing around with these things.
I've also kind of researched like where you like storage and safety cabinets because they're just for display purposes. You can sort of show them off.
Yeah, mine
But yeah, it's
mine
quite
opens up some boxes and then it just chills out with the collection. That's all mine does. Yeah.
because yeah, they are quite impressive when they're displayed. And yeah, like you said, I researched. Is it when purchasing knives, the legalities of it, and apparently you just need to be over 18 to purchase some of these
Yeah, I
knives.
know Australia has some strict rules on them. Like they can only be a certain length, but I think that's only with pocket knives. Like as long as you don't have it in your car or anything when you get bailed
Yeah,
up, and like it's literally at your house,
yeah, you get
you're pretty
done
much
for.
fine. Yeah, but if you keep it on you in public at all, then they'll like even if it's just laying in your car or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can get done for that. I was reading.
yeah, carrying a concealed weapon.
Yeah, it was a 12-inch knife, mate. Like it's, yeah. Was it a real gun or was it loading a water pistol? Yeah, it was real.
Yeah,
Well, because I know there's like an armory shop that ships out from Queensland and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to get a replica of the Walther PPK.
oh yeah,
And
yeah,
and it's got like a removable clip and all of that, like no bullets or anything, like not even prop ones or anything, but the clip can come out and it looks the part and it would chill out on the shelf. I mean, it's James Bond's personal weapon, his side piece. I just
yeah.
thought it'd be cool to own it. And they just said, yeah, no, you can buy them and we can ship them to you and all of that. But just, they did say they have some trouble in other states, but because they're Queensland based, it shouldn't be an issue doing it. I just haven't put the order in to do it yet. But yeah, they do give you a couple of warnings going, don't go running around with this thing at a convention or something. It will get you killed. Don't be
Yeah.
a dickhead.
Yeah, and of course, an alternative, like with you can purchase movie props. So I've also sort of tentatively investigated that. Like a lot of the like famous knives, you don't actually have to purchase the real one. You can purchase a prop, and that would be. I mean, they look real enough, and they're just for display purposes.
Oh, yeah, exactly. If they're just going to chill out on a glass shelf
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. It's like some of these guys. Like I was sort of saying hello on some Reddit threads, and like they're only allowed to show them if the missus goes away for the weekend. That was so funny. Like, yeah, the wife's away for the weekend, so here are all these bad boys, and he
I
lays like 20 knives out.
yeah. Well, like, how'd you get that on the plane? Checked it. Just through the John Locke, mate.
Yeah,
It's yeah, like see, that's one thing I've always found interesting with collectors from time to time. So you're very passionate about your hobby and all of that. You got to keep them all boxed up until the wife goes on a shopping spree,
yeah,
or goes to see the mother-in-law or something like that, and then you get on Reddit to flex. Um, I don't know if I could do that. It's
yeah.
almost like hollowing out a PC shell and putting your PlayStation in it because the missus doesn't like them.
Yeah. Well, I just love people who are passionate about things, whether it's a hobby or it's a job or an interest
I mean,
or
because you work to live, you don't live to work, and I think everyone's entitled to enjoy their money however they want
yeah,
to do it.
very,
Like if
very
you,
much so. Yeah. It's yeah, people shouldn't be embarrassed about the things they're passionate about.
yeah, like if you wanna start, stabbing holes into your Coke can instead of opening it, who am I to judge? You
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I love the change. So we're into the full on Navy. Is this pre or post Navy SEALs?
This is post, I believe. I think Navy SEALs was late 80s as well. This was 1992, but look at the size of that chain for the anchor.
Yeah,
Holy
I know.
Christ.
Yeah, yeah. Some people think it's like a dog leash or something. Like, no, it's a big piece of machinery. Like,
Yeah.
just look at it.
Yeah. And Dahmer's doing his best to be MVP of Stranix's group here because he does spot Ryback in the water shortly as he yeah, here we go. I mean, you need damn good fucking eyes to be able to do that.
And this is like the dead of night as
Yes,
well. Like,
Dahmer.
here we go. I was waiting for this bloke to take his shot. Yeah, here we go. Like the other guy standing there next to the tie off, like he's just unloading lead. He's got no idea what he's shooting at. Just everyone else is doing it, so he thought, why not?
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, just chuck the. Yeah, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and they get a decent chunk of him. Yeah, they didn't miss.
Yeah, oof. Oh, I bet that damn near killed Seagal to have the character cop an injury, because I believe that's the first one he's had the whole movie, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, when I revisited this movie, I do, because he gets this kind of little cut towards the end. But yeah, I um, was reminded, yeah, the hook takes a chunk out of him.
Like, because I'm just trying to think of 80 movies and 90s movies around this point. Like we're an hour and 20 in. Like, I try to think what condition was, like, Kyle Reese in the Terminator at this point. Like, I think the guy was, like, from the time he, like, smashes into the pavement when he gets back in time, he doesn't sleep throughout the entire duration in the 80s. He doesn't eat throughout the entire time during his time in the 80s. And he gets wounded by gunfire fairly quickly in the film as well.
Yeah,
Like
well,
like he like they pile it up pretty quickly on the heroes uh, prior to this movie, don't they? Like, even in
yeah, well,
Die
the
Hard, he got
Terminator.
flogged up pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, it's and those films are really well paced as well. I mean, the pacing of the Terminator is so good, and as the movie goes on, the pacing is just relentless. And yeah, and that was part of the whole Die Hard formula because they needed a point of difference, a point of departure from Stallone and Schwarzenegger, who were the kings of the box office. So they went the opposite direction. Ironically enough, Die Hard was offered to Stallone, but he turned it down. So they went with yeah, Bruce
And
Willis, who
probably for good reason as well. Like, there's a lot of people who'll make the argument going, "Oh, this person was almost going to be doing this movie. Imagine how awesome it would have been." Like, had Stallone had taken Die Hard, Die
well,
Hard
it
would
just
not have
becomes
had like four sequels.
yeah, that's right, and it's nowhere near as memorable or groundbreaking
It just
or
becomes another
trendsetting.
Stallone action movie of
Yeah,
the time. It doesn't.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
the fact that and Bruce Willis wasn't stupidly buff. He just looked like a sort of regular
he's
fella.
literally an off-duty cop. That's all he is in that
Yeah,
film. He's not.
no
Yeah.
no shoes, and he does get banged up because yeah, he's just a regular guy in an impossible situation.
Although it is starting to eat my, I am starting to eat my words a little bit here. Is that hook, like, Seagal didn't just get up and change costume and he's ready to rock and roll. He's just been laying there for like the last 10 minutes after he got out of the water. So
Yeah,
yeah, so at least it's leaving some lasting damage. Like, he doesn't just get up like it didn't happen, like a la Rambo 3 when he gets shot through the leg and then gets up and puts weight on that same leg to fight a tank.
yeah. It's and Seagal was becoming more aware of it because there is a movie he did called Executive Decision, where he's killed off quite early in it, which was a huge sort of shock to audiences, and they knew full well, um, the filmmakers, they knew, okay, you see Seagal and he's this tough guy army colonel, that he could probably play with his eyes closed, and yeah, he gets sort of offed, yeah, fairly early on in the movie. They wanted him in the film because they didn't think his co-star Kurt Russell could really sell it on his own. So I think it's the only film he has been killed off in his career.
I love actors that fully embrace their character deaths. A good one for me has always been Sam Jackson. Like, Samuel
Oh
L.
yeah,
Jackson, like, gets whacked in every single goddamn movie he has ever been in, and he just, because why not?
yeah,
Like,
because back it's not so much a thing now because there's no real movie stars anymore. But yeah, these were factors they did consider back in the day because it wasn't about the role in and of itself. It was about cultivating their on-screen persona and image. And I'm not sure if it was Van Damme or it may have even been Stallone or Schwarzenegger, where they were encouraged to not play bad guys because bad guys get killed, and don't take roles where you get killed off because it's going to sort of ruin the tough guy heroic image that you have. Because it wasn't, because people did follow movie stars. Like, I'm going to check out the latest Stallone movie, or I'm going to check out the latest Schwarzenegger. Like, there's a reason their name was above the title because their name was going to sell it because they'd developed this persona. And you never see that anymore. I mean, there's not millions of Chris Evans fans. There's millions of Captain America fans.
I think that a lot about Tom Holland, but unlike the rest of the crew, like I like to think Chris Evans is aware enough to know that the major pull that he has. Because if he's not aware, I'll be dead set shocked. But Holland being on the younger end of the spectrum, you don't have 1 billion Tom Holland fans. You've got 1 billion Spider-Man fans following you around is what you've got, and you should learn the distinction between that. Because if you're not wearing that costume, no one cares.
Yeah, I think the last one is Tom Cruise. He's sort of the last one who was still around during this era, who could probably sell a movie just on his name. I don't think, off the top of my head, anyone else can.
And I would say probably the only other one I can think that even comes close, although I still think Tom Cruise is leagues above him, probably Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, maybe Jason Statham as well, maybe.
He's definitely in the top 5 of who could probably do it.
Because he's he sort of has this persona as well, and his films generally do pretty well. Jason Statham, he does sort of cultivate that image. But yeah, they're few and far between these days.
Well, I suppose the reason for that is because there's been a shift from movie stars to YouTube stars and streaming stars now. Like, you don't have to go to some casting agency in Hollywood to get good at anything anymore. You can literally turn on a webcam and just do whatever, and you're going to fall ass backwards into success sooner or later.
And it's all franchise and sequels and spin-offs now. Stallone articulates this kind of well. He reckons he puts it down to that first Batman film with Keaton. Like, suddenly you didn't need big muscles anymore to sell a movie. It was all about sort of costumes and franchises and special effects and that. But so it's quite interesting.
I do know people like to bag on Stallone a little bit, for being the guy who's been punched in the head one too many times, but he's very good with his observations like that.
Yeah, I wish he would flesh that one in particular out a little bit more as Commander Krill.
I remember when he told a good story about when he went to meet George Lucas for reading the role of Han Solo, and as soon as Stallone walked into the room and met George for the first time, he sat the script back down and said, "Look, I'd be shit at this role. I'd look terrible in tights with a laser gun. I'll just leave. I'm sorry I wasted your time." But I love that because Stallone was fully aware this is so not a film I'll be in. This is not what people are going to like me for. Because this was coming right off of Rocky. And so, he's just like, "Look, I get it. I'm not going to fit this role at all."
Did you catch that little moment with Krill before the bomb hits? He takes the bandage off.
Yeah, I know. And the real smug grin.
Tommy Lee Jones starts to lose it.
I love the tie-dye undershirt.
Yeah, I know. I want this guy's whole attire. I would wear it every second day. I'm loving his whole attire, his whole persona.
He's looking as stable as a fucking 3-legged chair right now. Well, the 2 wingmen are dead now, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, Krill. Yeah, well, that's something that I miss as well. I don't mind the villains being bloodthirsty and ridiculously malicious and all that kind of stuff, but when there's a group of them, you got to have one of them be there that you just can't wait to get whacked. Yeah. And Krill fits that bill. Gary Busey's that guy in everything. He's that guy in Surviving the Game. You can't wait for him in particular to get killed. Yeah. And when it happens, you just love it. He's really good at playing that guy. And there's I really do miss that. Or they have there's infighting with the evil groups, with the terrorists or whatever, and you can't wait for the main bad to kill the dickhead villain. A good example of that is Hans and Ellis. Even though Ellis is not part of the group, there's someone you want to have killed, and you can't wait for the main villain to do that for you. That's another cool little thing I like.
Yeah, Ellis. Yeah, don't be Ellis.
Yeah. Hey, John Boy. Here we go. So our heroes here have been sitting on the top of this submarine for quite a while now. Have we got a plan at all yet, or are we?
Yeah, they didn't realize Stranix is still on the loose, and he's just launched the Tomahawks. But they're going to cobble together a plan. They can be detonated safely remotely, but they need to get to the bridge.
Oh, and another thing I like with villain groups as well. I love it when there's one who you can tell their heart's not really in the evil cause, and the protagonists know that, and they end up giving them a pass at the end of the film. A good one for me was always Tinker in Roadhouse.
Oh yeah, yeah,
How like he was kind of just bullied and intimidated into helping out Wesley and all that kind of stuff. And when all those guys get killed, it's awesome how they let Tinker off at the end because he
yeah,
was never really in it to begin with.
yeah,
I love it when they do that. Like not all
yeah,
of them have to go down the dark path.
yeah. It just goes along with it, but isn't really a part of it. Um, Admiral Bates as well. He comes back for the sequel, and I think so does the other commander. So it's a different situation room.
I love the AWOL handwriting on the helmet.
Yeah,
Just real quick on the sequel, I always thought that was another one of those kind of retooled scripts that became a sequel in name only. I clean forgot that it was a fully fledged sequel to the film. I
yeah.
totally
I
forgot
suspect
that.
no. I suspect you're right. So it's called Under Siege 2 Dark Territory, but I believe it was just called Dark Territory, and it was its own similar plot. Terrorists take control of a train, yada yada yada. But yeah, it was repackaged as they go in, find and replace names and put Rye back in and just sort of flesh it out a little bit. But I think you're right. So it became Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. Um, yeah,
Well, that
it's
was
not as good
pretty
as this
common.
one.
That was pretty common at the time, though. Like that
Oh, very
happened.
much so, yeah, yeah. Where you'd have vehicles that probably aren't strong enough on their own get repackaged, and it's basically about pairing it up with a known brand. Under Siege 1 was a massive hit, and with the flop of On Deadly Ground, they managed to corral Segal into doing the sequel. It's I find the sequel to be a little bit of a mixed bag, but it does get really good marks for me because it has good villains as well as they. Now I love this bit here. This is quite a compelling scene. This with Stranix and Ryback as we watch it play out because it's revealed that they know each other and it's never explained how.
This is the
It's a
first time they've met in the whole film.
That's right. Yeah. When they come face to face, they immediately recognize each other, but it's never explained how.
Well, he just called him Sir, so he was a superior of some regard.
I know it's so fascinating, and Tommy Lee Jones says it's been a long time, and I'm so glad that film never explains it. It's up to our imagination, but I find it such an intriguing scene, and I've often wondered over the years, like it just poses so many mysteries, doesn't it? How do they know each other? And oh, it's just so juicy. I love the way both men play this, and it's such a. It just gives this film just a little subtle texture, a little bit more flavour, where they know each other. I did vaguely recall trying to read. Apparently, they did flesh it out in the script about a mission gone wrong. Nah, I've ruined it already. Just leave that shit out. It's so much better left to the imagination. I just love it how he said, "I know you," and he goes, "Yeah, been a long time."
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, there's a saying that less is more that gets shuffled around a little bit, but though I think people have lost the true context of why that is as popular as it is. Less like you've got enough there to make your own conclusion of
Yes.
your own hypothesis about their meeting and how they know each other and all of that, and it doesn't overstep boundaries, and you've got all the dialogue on screen to do that and how they play it. What gets me is when people say less is more. Less is more. I don't mean J.J. Abrams mystery box crap.
Yeah.
You know, where literally nothing gets given away because there's nothing to give away.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, yeah, I don't like it when they or they over explain it, or they've got nothing to explain, and then oh yeah, but it's less is more. It's the mystery box. Like
Yeah. When it's used to just add a little bit of mystery, it's fine. When it's used to hide behind shitty writing and plot holes, it's not.
yeah, that's true.
Um,
Yeah,
this is an amazing fight as well. Geez, the choreography and
yeah, bite the knife, man.
yeah, and here's killing the corpse. Stabs him in the head, then rams him through a monitor.
Yeah, you got to kill the corpse, mate.
But yeah, that was an incredible knife fight. Seagal shared an anecdote once. He attended Brandon Lee's funeral, and being such a miserable occasion, I forget who it was that, after they'd attended the ceremony, someone swanned up beside him, like on a shitty day, but sweet man, how awesome was that knife fight in Under Siege? Apparently that really happened.
I love hearing these random kind of stories like that when people catch actors literally
Yeah.
just going about their day like they're not there for anything in particular. I heard a good one, although there's no shortage of awesome stories about Keanu Reeves. But I heard a good story. Someone spotted him at an airport and walked past him, and they did a John Wick quote to him. I haven't seen the films, but I think the quote was something like, "Oh, sorry to hear about your dog, John. Thank you." And he said it in the character.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I just thought, yeah, that's easy to that. Like it's awesome hearing things like that. But but sometimes that's all it takes, to turn a shit day good. Yeah, how awesome was that night fight? One thing I liked about that fight, though, was that, again, it's another one of those, we need to do a new segment called If It Was Made Today. We would still be watching that fight now. It would be like a fucking lightsaber duel, and they would have made their way up to the bridge.
Yeah, yeah, it's just short and sharp and vicious, and it's I often reflect on that fight and just how brilliantly executed it was. I forget the name, but there is a YouTube channel where these knife experts analyze famous knife fights in movies, and they did that one. And they went into detail about the kinds of, like, Seagal's blade was double edged, and whereas Tommy Lee Jones was a single edge, and how they're holding them, and they gave Seagal props that he's got his thumb on the butt of the knife, which is a very underrated technique, because if you go to stab someone, you can really force it into them if your thumb is on the butt of the knife. It was just I really admired them for giving a very memorable fight scene the sort of respect it deserved, because it's an incredible fight. I wish we had time to sort of flesh it out more, but it's a fight I do remember and do reflect on as an example of getting it right. And it's another reason why the film did so well.
Yeah.
And the pacing is really good. Like it's a play out of the George Lucas copybook. The fight shouldn't go on for too long, because it does get a bit boring. It was just really vicious and really just two guys just not backing down. It was really effective.
Well, the whole point, we made that comment in Point Break, and that in the final fight of that, and that is, like, the whole purpose of a fight isn't to show pony around skills, it's to take the other guy out as quickly as possible, and that's exactly what we saw there. Like, you got two guys playing for keeps, there's a lot riding on this, there's adrenaline pumping through everyone, bang! Someone's going to get killed in a matter of... That fight didn't even last like 30 seconds. That was just over. Like, that's... Like, if you want a realistic depiction of a fight, there you go. Because that's about how long a real one lasts, if that.
It was very brilliantly executed.
Yeah, well, he has to have the pash up there somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, he no doubt insisted upon it.
Yeah, well, it was by far the most important part of my character. Needed to do it.
Yeah. It's making its way into port. Yeah, again, sound like a broken record. Just another stunning
I
shot.
love these wide shots of the fleet
Aren't
and all of
they
that.
just
It's so
incredible?
cool.
Yeah, they're just phenomenal.
A good sense of scale as well, like being shot
Oh,
on like the
very
real
much
thing
so.
and all. Like, look at the size of these cannons from deck
Yeah,
level. Like that shot before of the salute and all of that. You see the size of that cannon. Like it's going off screen and then some. Like,
yeah, yeah. Just incredible. The naval scenes are just such a massive highlight of this film. And yeah, they from the first frame until the end, they nailed every shot of the
what
battleships.
what do you use? Casey Ryback. Did the name Casey even be said in the entire film?
I believe it was, yeah, yeah, and it's a lovely little segue into the sequel when they're aware he's on the train. Casey fucking Ryback? Who's Casey fucking Ryback?
Yeah, William Stranix.
Yeah, there was a funny moment because they're given all the laundry list of accomplishments like Silver Star, Black Belt. This guy's the best. I thought you were the best. That's why I hired you.
It reminds me of that good comment in Hollow Man when he's arguing with the vet. You know, like, what's her fucking problem? You know, she cares more about the animals than she does the research. That's probably why she's the best vet. You told me to hire the best. Yeah, I love the self-reflection. Yeah, you know, again, like, I love the like, locked in kind of, you know, you're on the boat, that's it, you're on the boat. We went through all the different levels of it. You know, we had our submarines and all that. I love like kind of claustrophobic environments, but even, you know, it's just my only problem with it is that yeah, it's I'm very hard to get behind Steven Seagal's characters. Like at the end there when he's all decorated up and saluting, I didn't really see much of that through your. You know, like you don't kind of get like that doesn't seem like it was natural to be the final time we saw him in the film based on how it played out over the film. It's just weird sometimes. I guess they needed to have him be a bit more honourable at the end of the film.
Yeah, with the burial of the captain.
Yeah,
It's
I'm gonna make you into a wallet.
yeah, that famous ad over that summer. Yeah, I'm gonna make you into a
Yeah,
wallet.
the snake. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they just hammered that ad.
Yeah, I think the real star of the show is probably Gary Busey, but that's just totally my bias on that. I just think he's awesome and everything. Like, you think Black Sheep with Chris Farley and David Spade, and Gary Busey is instantly the first thing that pops into your head.
Yeah, they Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey really elevated this film, and their performances in it are what make it memorable. They and it was good to see Eric Bogosian in the sequel really honor that spirit as well as I think he plays the character
Yeah,
Dane.
special thanks, and then you got all the US ships.
Yeah, because I believe there's a naval uh, history museum in Mobile, Alabama, as and I believe this is the real Missouri.
Yeah, I didn't realize the credits fade back into it. Probably just to remind you one more time of how awesome ships are.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, yeah, so a
Yes.
little bit of a forward of what happened to the ship.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, probably the best Seagal movie, and it's probably his most palatable to a mainstream audience. Yeah, I had fun talking about it.
Yeah, well, that's my first real exposure to Steve Seagal, so we can only go up from here.